Good evening, everyone. I'm Katy Stafford on this special edition of Ghost Fever with Supernatural Inc. Paranormal Network. We were running just a little behind, but that's okay because better late than sorry, right, guys? So I wanted to start out with a positive affirmation today, and my cards are over there. So I'm going to give you my own affirmation opinion, or take it or leave it. Basically, what you dwell on is what you will manifest. So always be appreciative of every day that you get to take another breath. So, but God bless. And tonight we are going to talk about Caldwell, Kansas. It's basically like an old cow town, and we have a very special guest. She's a part of the Historical Society in Caldwell, and her name is Michelle Schultz. I hope I did not butcher her last name, but she's going to come on with us, and she's a historian, and she's going to discuss some of the buildings and the town's history. We have an event coming this weekend in Caldwell, Kansas, and it's a very small group of roughly 20 people. We might add two more ticket spaces, but it is sold out. But I believe we're going to add two more tickets. So, anyways, let's go ahead and bring on our guest, Michelle. And hi, Michelle. Good
Hello.
evening. Thank you so much for coming on. And we do have some people in the chat, and we have Miss Kim Libby. How are you, Kim? I miss you so much. Kevin Davis, hey buddy. Becky Evans, how are you, Beb? And Tracy Rizzo, it's nice to see you, Tracy. I appreciate you. Mike Brown, how are you? So, thank you everyone who is joining in this evening, and we're going to talk history of Caldwell, Kansas. As you know, the Caldwell, Kansas Historical Society is hosting a history ghost hunt this weekend, Saturday. The event is sold out, but I was able to talk to our bookie. I call him our bookie, but because we don't do the ticketing. So, but anyways, he has agreed because we don't want a lot of people, even though this is a town of 4 to 5 buildings to research. There's only 20 tickets available. So it's going to be very personal. It's going to be very small. Um, it's going to be great. And Caldwell is filled with history. So that being said, I'm going to take it to Michelle and kind of give us the a general, like, when did Caldwell become incorporated?
Caldwell was founded in 1871. The Chisholm Trail that came up from Texas had already gone through what later became Caldwell in the area. And enterprising man from Wichita, Kansas, named his last name is Stone. He came down and decided that this was a great place to open a store for everything a cowboy would need. The cattle were coming up from Texas through Indian territory. And so when they crossed the line into Kansas, he had a sign outside of his little store that said first chance. And then when they turned around to go back down to Texas, the sign on the other side said your last chance. And it was their first or last chance to get whiskey, women, pretty much anything they needed. So that was
So,
called the last chance.
so where I know, I was doing my own research. The way that I conduct paranormal research, well, whatever you want to call it, but I typically develop a timeline through various years. And so, is it called the Queen Border, or I'm trying to
The
look at my
Border
note.
Queen.
The Border
Yes.
Queen.
Caldwell is known as the Border Queen. Yes.
Okay, so my assistant, who, you know, I I started her on doing historical research on Caldwell, Kansas, and we are making a brochure of the buildings that we're researching this weekend, and I'm going to print them out and bring them so people have something to take with them of history that they can review from from your town. And she asked me, she said, "What's the border queen mean?" I was like, "Keep doing research, and you will find out what that means." And can you tell our viewers what border queen, where the term came from and all that? Yeah.
Because we were right on the border between Indian Territory and the state of Kansas, because Kansas was a state in 1871, and the Indian Territory was Oklahoma, was still not part of the United States. So we developed a nickname called the Border Queen, and it's stuck over the years. We still use it on a lot of our advertising and a lot of our historical brochures and things.
So I have read some Wild West happenings in Caldwell, and I did notice the town was named after a senator or a congressman. Is that correct?
Yes, Alexander Caldwell. Yes.
And I didn't see where he actually lived in Caldwell. Is that just
He didn't live in Caldwell. They just picked his name
and
name the town after him.
do you think that that was to show maybe not just Missourians or even the surrounding states at the time, or even Kansas, of where their support was more leaning to when they would name a town after, because when I dug into history with, Mr. Caldwell, he was mentioned a lot in Leavenworth, Kansas, and is that just? I was just wondering what your opinion is on that. Is that something that people would show that they were more dedicated on the Union side? Is that one of the because not just Caldwell? There's a lot of towns in Kansas that are named after individuals that never even lived in the town.
Yes, yes. They probably chose Mr. Caldwell because he was a member of Congress, and it was kind of like maybe if he knew there was a town named after him, that he might actually pay attention to what's going on in that town. I don't know that he ever did. That's not anything in particular. So he did not, that we know of, take an interest.
And we have a viewer that asked the question if there are any caves in Caldwell.
No, there are not.
And so another cool thing that I found about Caldwell that I absolutely find very fascinating is all the different types of trails, and also with the railroad. And the railroad, I don't have those dates in front of me at the moment, but it's so weird because Caldwell did go to like Abilene, Kansas as well. And I was finding this, I was like, well, that's weird because I'm going to, because we were in Abilene, Kansas last weekend. So I just had found that very interesting. And
yes. Caldwell was where the Chisholm Trail came into basically the United States again. And they drove the cattle further north through Newton. Some were driven to Newton, which is north about an hour, Wichita, and out west to Abilene, where the railheads were established. And they shipped all those cattle back. As a matter of fact, almost every head of cattle that went through the Chisholm Trail went through Caldwell.
Wow.
Because they went to the different railheads. And Wichita's biggest, I think their biggest season was in 1873, 76, one of those. And they shipped out 400,000 head of cattle during the season, which was, not a whole year. That's just, and every single one of those went through Caldwell.
Oh, wow. So, you know, it's it I'm glad you gave those dates because you know, I know a lot of research about the Shawnee Indian Mission that's in uh uh Reverend Thomas Johnson, you know, like Johnson County was named after
Mhm.
Reverend Thomas Johnson. He was a Methodist, and he built a school for, you know, Native children. Not they didn't just have Native children there, but the Shawnee Indians gave them the property. And I was reading diaries of people who worked like teachers and stuff at Shawnee Indian Mission. They would talk about all the cattle that would come through, and they knew is that the Indians, the natives. Well, I kind of feel like I'm the native because, but I'm not Native American, but I feel like you know because you have like you know Lakota Osage and you know. But anyways, I was talking to a Native American friend of mine, and he goes, "Well, you guys are the natives, not us." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I get that." But you know, the Shawnee Indians taught, you know, the early settlers as they were, you know, coming and migrating to. I'm so sorry, that's my daughter. She's my honey bunny. But as they migrated here to the Midwest, the Shawnee Indians were teaching the early settlers of what time of year cattle would come through. And I remember reading in one of the diaries of one of the teachers that they had spotted about 2,000 cattle going out further west. And they would, the cattle themselves would develop their own kind of like little trail, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. And how many trails does Caldwell have?
Well, the Chisholm Trail is the main one, and the Chisholm Trail actually had two branches. The one that went north, and then there was one that went out west towards Ellsworth, which is a town in western Kansas, too. Uh, but the main trail that came up from Texas was named for Jesse Chisholm, and he was part Native American. And so he was the one that plotted the trail that this is the way to go to get up north for the cattle to go from Texas.
Oh, wow. So from Texas, he was going up north to Caldwell, Kansas?
Yes, he went through Texas, through the whole state of Oklahoma, which wasn't a state yet, but the
Correct.
territory. And then Caldwell was right on the state border, the line. So it was the first town that these cowboys had seen for miles and miles. And they were ready to relax, take a bath, get some whiskey, have some female companionship, and then they had to restock their things and replace their things with the stores that first stores that came up were obviously saloons. At one
Yes.
time, there were 18 saloons in Caldwell during this time period. Uh, there were houses of ill repute. There were at least 11 of those operating at any given time during this window of time. Uh, and then there were like the harness makers, the horseshoers, the people that tended to the cowboys. So Caldwell's original town was basically for the cowboys. It catered to the cowboys.
Like, so was Bloody Bill like, uh, I read somewhere where I don't know if he lived there, but do you know anything about like Bloody Bill and can you elaborate a little bit more on like was Caldwell like one of the stopping towns? I mean, some of the history I read, like they had like 18 marshals get deleted,
Yes,
deleted.
yes.
Can try to keep it clean, and Bloody Bill's name came up, but it seemed like he more or less liked to gamble mostly and drink. Maybe is kind of what I gathered. I'm trying to find some of my notes here. So,
Yeah.
uh,
they attracted a rough trade because back then there was a fine line between the lawmen and the outlaws. If they were
Right.
good with a gun, then they could also get a job as a marshal in some town
Right.
and clean up the town. And in fact, we had a marshal that did just that, and the city of Caldwell gave him a Winchester rifle with a gold plate on it that thanked him
Wow.
for doing it. Well, shortly after he received that, Henry Brown and his deputy marshal and two of his associates went to a neighboring town of Medicine Lodge, Kansas, and robbed the bank, killing two of the bankers. They were caught and lynched. So he was, and later it was found out that he actually knew Billy the Kid and was down in the territory down by New Mexico, Texas, around there at one time with Billy the Kid. There's actually a picture in our museum of him in the picture with Billy the Kid and other men. So,
And you know what? I believe we might have a picture of the museum. I don't know if Brandon had. I think I sent it to Brandon. I'm not sure if he does. He'll blast it on the screen there. But so what's the messenger building about? Because that's one of the buildings I believe we're going to be researching.
Okay, that particular messenger building, the Caldwell Messenger, goes back to the early days. However, it was not in that building until that building wasn't built until I believe it was the late 30s. But the Caldwell Messenger had existed in other locations in town. So the Caldwell Messenger is where you can find a treasure trove of information. If you can go to newspapers.com and look up some of the things, for a particular year or a name, that's the newspaper you're going to get. And we still have the Caldwell Messenger. So.
Wow, that's awesome. And so I was looking for, well, my a minute, my assistant was looking for a picture, and I was joking with her. She goes, "Can I use this photo of this Xerox to go on the brochure, like for the messenger?" I looked at her and I said, "What? Are No, they didn't. Xerox wasn't." I was harassed. I was like, "No, you have to be like period correct." She's, "Well, I can't find an exact model of what they had," and I was like, just as long as it's in the same time period and accurately historically correct, just to show an example of something that they may have used for a printing press. And I doubt you guys have that printing press anymore, do you?
Yes, as a matter
What?
of
Y'all
fact,
have it?
it's still in the building. Yes.
No way.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I totally got unprofessional there because I
It's
am a
still there.
well, I am a printer, and I have a have a lithograph, a very old lithograph that actually it came from Kansas. It has like blueprints to a dairy farm on it. It's about this big, okay, and that thing weighs every bit of 38 pounds. You wouldn't think that a piece of limestone would weigh that much, but the evolution of getting information out to the public was very important back then because we didn't have TVs. We were lucky to maybe even have a Bible. I mean, so, I just found that very interesting. And so there was something else, and the Grand Opera House, is that like a historic site as well?
It is. It was the first opera house that Caldwell had two, but that was the first one. It was built in 1881. That building. So
Wow.
it's one of the older ones in town, and it was built by a man named J.S. Stanford. He was a banker, so he had his bank down on the main floor, and then rented part of it out to other businesses. And then the upstairs was the opera house. The whole upstairs, it's a huge building. The whole upstairs was the opera house. It could seat 500 people.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very historical building for two reasons. One was that J.S. Stanford also absconded with all the money of the investors in Caldwell and left his poor wife to try to placate him on the doorstep of the Opera House building. And he took off and left her. And so the crowd, the angry crowd mob, was mad at her. And she said, I don't know. I don't know. He's coming back. She placated him somewhat. But the Opera House upstairs was where the Talbot gang raid started.
Yes.
Because Jim Talbot, the bad guy, had a gang. They had come to town. They were being wild. And there was an opera going on, a play going on upstairs at the Opera House, Uncle Tom's Cabin. They went up there and started raising a ruckus. And somebody did not like it. They stood up. They said, you get out of here. And they threatened that they were going to come back and they were going to, so they left and they did come back. It was a gun battle between the citizens of Caldwell and the Talbot gang that lasted hours. And they were hiding behind the buildings. Mike Mayer, who was a former mayor and marshal of Caldwell, hid behind the Opera House to try to get a good shot around the corner up towards Main Street. And later, he was killed by the Talbot gang. There's still bullet holes in the back of the Opera House building. Sadly, you cannot see them because they have been covered over with stucco. When we remodeled the Opera House several years ago, we took the stucco off. We saw them. We documented the picture. But unfortunately, the mortar and the brick was too soft, and for the integrity of the building, we had to re-stucco it to hold it together.
So the bullets are still there. You guys just stuccoed,
Yes, the bullets weren't in there. The bullets had hit and chipped it. That they were the bullet tracks of where they shot at him.
Wow. Oh my, that's crazy. And so going back to the Messenger building, because what's up with the vault? Is that in that building? What's this vault thing?
Okay, the Messenger building is separate from the vault. The vault building is the one that fronts Main Street. It's an older building. It was built in 1884. It was also a bank when it was first built. And it has been owned by numerous people. It used to be a 3-story building. They took the top story off, moved it down the street.
Yeah.
It has been 2 banks. It's been owned by different, a doctor owned it and lived on the 2nd floor. Interestingly enough, for prime real estate in the town of Caldwell, it has been emptied more than it has been occupied. And nobody seems to know why.
Really?
Mm-hmm. In its existence, yes.
So, and I believe we have a picture of that building, and I don't know if Brandon knows what picture it is, but he'll flash some pictures up there. But
okay, there's the Messenger, yes.
Mm-hmm. And then the vault is like a corner. It's like a corner.
Yes.
Building. Yeah.
It's on Main Street. Yes.
Yeah. He's gonna flash them all up there, and we'll see which one it is as he flashes it through there. So there was the bordello was in the museum. Is that correct?
Well, actually, there is no historical record of a bordello per se in that building. There could have been in the original building that stood on the premises, because the building that's there now was built later. The town of Caldwell was already 10, 15 years going strong when they started building these big stone and brick buildings.
Right.
So it's very possible that there was a 2-story frame wooden building there that was torn down by the owner when he built his newer building there. So it's very possible that there was, when we had that many bordellos and that many saloons, almost every building in town at that point was occupied.
So just a quick ballpark. My assistant was saying, yeah, I think there was like 17 bordellos there. I was like, no, I think that includes like the saloons too, right?
No, we have a list in our opera house in the museum part of all of the madams that were arrested in Caldwell during this I think it's 1 year, maybe 2. And of course, a lot of them were not their real names. They made
Correct.
up names. They were flamboyant. But this came directly from the old records of the police docket back in the day. We have a copy of that in our museum.
And real quick before we close out, Caldwell literally was the Wild West. There was a lot of shootouts, a lot of drunkenness. Just, I'm going to say, very free-spirited people would come through there. And so Kim Libby, she says a lot of the old towns hide like the bordello's history. I guess it's embarrassing to the town folk, but I will say that Caldwell, you guys love your history, and so I'm not getting religious, but I am a Christian, and you know, we can get biblical on this, and that is history that a lot of towns do hide.
They do,
and
we don't though. We know
right.
It occurred.
That's right.
In our Chisholm Trail Festival that we have every year, we portray the saloon girls and the cowboys and the bad men because they are our history. We were the wickedest town on the Chisholm Trail.
I heard. I mean, literally. I mean, I kind of feel like some places are going. They're going back. I feel like we're going back to the Caldwell Wild West in some parts of the United States, but a little bit worse. But you know, I have a lot of documentation that I came across. But before I let you go, I got to ask you this question: have you ever experienced anything that you could unexplained in Caldwell, in any of the buildings, or you know?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
I had to ask.
Haven't that I know of. That but a lot of people have. So
now, so you're part of the historical society, and you guys do own one of the historic buildings, correct?
Yes, we do. And we actually own 2 of them. We own the museum building where the
Border Queen,
the bordello is now.
The Border Queen Museum, is that what it is?
Yes. And then we also own the Opera House building.
Oh, you do own the Opera House.
We maintain both of those, yes.
Well, we are, hoping to raise. We've raised you. I don't want to say how much it is because I don't like doing that, anyways. But we wanted to start out with small groups and try to make the tickets affordable for people to come and be aware of the history of Caldwell, and to kind of understand how people lived, and how the early settlers came about. And Caldwell is a beautiful, I don't know if that's the right word, I probably shouldn't use that, but it's how people lived, and most people would pass through, but the history is so filling. There's so much there. And I mean, I have like binders and like of history, and I have maps that are dated back when they first started laying out Caldwell, and I will bring those are in my own personal archive of information. So I will bring those I'll make copies and give those to your historical
Great.
society to have. But Michelle, I appreciate you coming on and giving us, telling us your knowledge and wisdom of Caldwell. I greatly appreciate it, just as a historian myself. And when I dove into that history, I was like, whoa, this is great, and I like just some of this. They're good, bad, and ugly, but you know what? That's life.
Yes.
That's life.
Yes,
And
Caldwell is definitely a prototype of a Wild West town. It had
absolutely.
everything. It still has the history. We're proud of it, and we welcome anybody that wants to come and find out more about Caldwell.
And I am so humble and grateful that you have invited us to come and be able to present some of the history while we are researching. And it's important for me, to keep history alive. It's very, very important for
Yes,
our
it
our
is.
society as a culture, as Americans. And I'm third generation Balkan, but I am an American, and I want to know the history and of all of America. So, and I hope that we're able to raise enough money to help you guys continue your efforts as a historical society. And I don't know if you guys are going to have like a volunteer sheet sitting out, or I don't know if you guys take members or anything like that.
Mhm.
And if you want to set out like a donation jar, and have, just try to get people interested in the preservation of the history of Caldwell, please set that out. And
We will.
it's very, very important, especially my assistant is actually 20 years old, and she just could not stop. And I was like, "Are you done?" She's like, "Well, this is like I'm reading like a novel here. This is great. I can't." She couldn't stop. She was so addicted, and she spent nights after night for the past week and a half. And she was like, "This is amazing." Yeah. So, but thank you, Michelle, and I will be seeing you probably Saturday morning. We'll be in late Friday. Well, tomorrow we'll be there tomorrow. So thank you again. And Haunted Nights Paranormal has been so gracious, also to have us come in and participate, and help fundraising for your historical society.
We appreciate it.
And we are doing our best to help keep that history going. Is important. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you very much. And I'll see you soon. All right, guys, tune in next Thursday. We Supernatural Inc. Network has a wonderful lineup of guests. We'll have Bruce Holiday. He Here's his new book here. I just got it in the mail today. It's called What If the Spirits Could Have Spoken? Kind of talks about the Conjuring House. And then also, um, When Spirits Speak. This is a very good book. It's very informative about the ITC research. It also talks about the best techniques, in investigating, like take into consideration the environmental aspects of wherever you're researching. And he also discusses the best way to use your ghost box right in this book right here. So if you guys have not picked up a copy of this, you can go on Amazon's Bruce Holiday. I'll also be having Austin Maynard from Deathwalker with Nick Groff. He'll be on as well. And then also Katy Stafford, my husband. And I had to bribe him to come. I'm kidding. But so we're going to have 3 amazing guests next Thursday, and we're going to be talking all about ITC. And I hope to see all of you guys there. Thank you so much for joining. Brother, I love you. That's our shaman. If it wasn't for Brandon, this wouldn't be happening right now. So uh, I love you, Brandon. I appreciate you very, very much. Hi, Jordan. How are you? Memphis Ghost Hunters. Yes, thank you for sharing to your page. I absolutely appreciate that. Cindy, how are you? Oh, okay. Yes, McNeely. Oh, oh my. That's one of the scary. There was a house in St. Joe called the McNeely House. I'm sorry, I totally went squirrel on everybody, but that's just how my mind thinks. That was this one. Ask KD. My husband, KD. I swear that was one of the most creepiest, scariest place that me and him researched. No lie. Uh, but thank you for uh, commenting in the thread. Hi, James Brown. How are you doing? Kim Brady. Kathy, how are you? Oh, Kathy, I believe you're from Caldwell. I believe. I'm not quite sure. Oh my goodness. Hi, Linda. How are you doing? And I saw Linda last weekend at the Bold Mansion. I kept calling her Linda Smith, and I thought she was gonna come downstairs and mess with me while I was sleeping in the basement, which is a little creepy in the Fallout room, like in the game. Any of you guys play the game Fallout? Yeah, there's a replica Fallout room that the owner did in the basement, and there's a door, and when you walk into that door, yeah, there's a real casket in there that had just so happened to have a body in it at one point. Obviously, they can't reuse it, so we were the first ones to sleep in the basement, and I don't know how many years. And yeah, it was very interesting. So, um, hi Tim, how are you? I haven't seen him on here in a while, but it's so nice to see you. And James Brady, I think I may have mentioned you, but I absolutely um, appreciate all of you. Dale, how are you? How are you doing, Crystal? Leah, Nicole, the vault. Wait, hold on. The vault is spooky late at night when it's empty. Well, hold on. We got somebody that knows some stuff here. Hey, Nicole. Yeah, I'm gonna come when you see me at some point. Yeah, I would like to know what you have experienced there in the vault. I mean, yeah, that's very interesting. And Leah and Kim Brady and uh, oh, and Kim was talking about his embarrassment with the history. So love my Caldwell history. Great job, Michelle. I could listen to you retell our history all day. You know what? I so want to pick her brain because I was trying to write notes down, and you know, it's very important for people to be involved in their community, especially with their historical studies, because they're all volunteers. Trust me, I know. I mean, I am a volunteer uh, for three historical societies, president uh, of one, and I sit on the board of another, and then I help out also at the Shoal Creek Living History Museum. I'm not on the board on that one. I just help out with history stuff whenever they decide to call me. Call me, Shoal Creek. I'm kidding. But anyways, that's very important. They survive off of new people coming in, and you don't necessarily have to volunteer. You can help out with $1 here, $1 there, or just becoming a member. Um, you know, stuff like that. I know times are really hard, but that's why we're doing these investigations as well. It, but the history is crazy in Caldwell, crazy and then crazy good, but it tells you how the early settlers lived. And I'm going to leave it there. And I hope to see all of you guys next Thursday. I don't know what time, Brandon. I don't know. 8 Central, Brandon. You're muted.
Yeah, that'll work. 8 Central.
Awesome. Awesome. So, yeah, we'll have, like I said, Bruce Holiday, Austin Maynard, and Katy Stafford next Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Hope to see you guys there. I love you all. God bless.